Hello, YouTube. It's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another movie review ramble thing. It's going to be similar to what I did for Dune, but today I'm going to be doing it for My Hero Academia World Heroes. So, yeah, let's get into it. So this is made by Bones, co-written by Horikoshi. I think Horikoshi had to do with the development of the story, but he's not the main person that did it. He just kind of created the characters, and someone else kind of wrote sanctioned fan fiction, basically. And as far as I understand it, this is also canon in the same way the first two movies are, which is like they happen in between two arcs of the manga, but they're only vaguely referenced from there on out. They don't actually have any impact on the actual story of the manga, right? So in fact, I guess they're more canon than the anime than the manga, but Horikoshi has said that they're all canon, so they work. This takes place during the Endeavor training agency thing, which is, I think, the early stages of the fifth season of the anime. But I don't really think that you need to watch the anime to know what's going on. I mean, I have, and I've read the manga, and I'm caught up to the manga, so I know everything about the story going in. But I think that you'll probably enjoy it more as a kind of like not knowing anything about the series, or not knowing like specifically what happens after the current season of the anime. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, even if these are canon, they don't really affect the story, so just look at it as its own thing that just happens to have characters that you enjoy, right? And I think that'll actually raise your enjoyment of it a lot. That's how I kind of look at these kind of movies, even if I like them and even if they kind of work into the story somehow. Generally, I'm going to not think of them as canon because they usually kind of mess up the flow of the story a little bit. And they kind of have this repercussion of like, why does the character not change from this situation if it was such a big deal according to the movie, right? So generally I just look at these movies as like, oh, this was an enjoyable time with characters I like, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the story, right? With the main story. So I recommend you look at it this way because I don't know, it's not going to be the best. Now, I haven't said anything spoilery yet, and I don't intend to, but I am going to talk more in detail about the story itself, the plot line, in general strokes. So if you don't want any of that kind of mentioned, feel free to leave in a few seconds. But I'll just let you know that it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I paid $11 for it, and I don't feel my $11 were wasted at all. But it is not as good as the first two movies. So, take that as you will. If you like the first two quite a lot, you probably won't like this one as much. But if you like them, kind of middle of the road, you'll probably like this one just as much. So, kind of decide what that means for you and kind of if you want to go watch the movie or not. Now, let's get into it. So, if the first movie was a 9 out of 10, and the second movie was an 8.5 or an 8 out of 10, this one is like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I'll say 7 out of 10 just to keep it kind of unambiguous. So it's definitely the worst out of the three. And it's not because the animation is worse. It's because the plot line is kind of not as meaningful. So in the first movie, the plot line is very self-contained. And so it's very nice because, okay, you have the plot line, things happen, and then you leave the island and you're fine, right? And the same thing with the second one, although the ending of the second one kind of messes up the kind of situation with quirks, or with Izuku's quirk a little bit. So that one is a little bit kind of harder to justify. But this third one is even worse than that because like the bad guys should have like a very meaningful repercussion to the world, and they don't really end up having any, so it kind of sucks, right? And the problem is that this kind of time period, this time frame is kind of rife with a lot of meaningful things in the manga, right? But the anime hasn't really touched on them yet, or hasn't touched on them much as far as I understand it. But it kind of, everyone knows what's coming, and so having this kind of really big, really impactful kind of storyline really doesn't work because everyone knows that this isn't really important in terms of like how everything happens. The first two movies kind of are self-contained enough that they don't feel like an issue. This one is like a worldwide issue, so it kind of feels a little bit weird that it's not mentioned at all in the manga, right? But it's not a big deal. Like I said at the beginning, just think of this as like its own thing with just characters you like, and you'll be fine. So what is the problem with the plotline here? More than anything, it's that the plotline is trying to be like a very realistic type of situation, and I don't really think that fits with My Hero Academia that well. So this movie is essentially the heroes, specifically Deku, Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo, and this extra guy who is kind of like a comedy guy, and like the comic relief character, going against this evil organization that is threatening the world with bombs. So it basically is a Mission Impossible movie or a James Bond movie or like some sort of Die Hard movie, you know, something like that. Like a very classic American style, like blockbuster movie that happens early summer, that everyone kind of talks about for a week or two and then no one gives a shit about anymore. And that kind of storyline, that plot line is like not the best because you just have to have the villains be villains for no reason. And this kind of happens here as well. It's also because it does kind of try to, you know, connect itself to other things that are happening in the story, like the Meta Liberation Army. Humorize is basically the opposite of the Meta Liberation Front, right? Or the Meta Liberation Army, or the whatever the stupid name of that organization is, like the one with the Doofenshmirtz guy, and Destro, and Reed Destro, right? Like, that is okay, but it's like, why are these guys not relevant to the manga if they're basically like the opposite, right? And with what's happening in the manga right now, it kind of would make sense that these quirkless people that are kind of anti-quirks would rise up and kind of talk about the issues that are happening right now. So, I don't know. It also kind of is similar to, you know, like real life, like religious cults and terrorist groups. And like those real life ones, the guy that's in charge is like a massive hypocrite, and he should not be in charge of this organization, right? Like the guy in charge is saying quirks are bad. They're a sickness on the world, but he is like quirked. He has a really powerful, really OP quirk because he's the main bad guy, so he has to have a big fight with Izuku at the end, right? And he also doesn't even look human at all. Like he has this like really fancy alien vibe, and so it's like, what the fuck? Why is this guy in charge of a bunch of quirkless people if he's obviously not quirkless? Like, and it's not even like an interesting kind of way of doing it. Like, oh, he's hiding his presence using his quirk so that people don't tell that he's not quirkless or anything like that. It's literally just like, yeah, I'm quirked, but I don't like it, so I'm gonna tell all of you guys to like kill all quirk people. It's like, what? That makes no sense, man. That's so ridiculous. Like, no one would listen to him. But again, this is a thing that happens in a lot of real life situations, so I guess it's realistic, but I don't like it because it doesn't make sense. And his whole kind of thing is like, oh, I reject everything that comes my way. But it's like, he talks about rejecting emotions, and then it's like, then wouldn't you not have followers? Like, a lot of it doesn't really make sense, and it's kind of shitty. But generally speaking, even though the plot line isn't really the best, and a lot of time is spent kind of like following Izuku and that kind of kid that shows up in the trailers, are like running around this island countryside that seems to be kind of like based on a Mediterranean, somewhere Greek, maybe Turkish inspired. It is pretty fun. Like, sure, it's not the best thing ever. Like, it's not the best, most thought out storyline ever, but it is pretty fun, and I enjoy it. And it looked pretty good. So it's a 7 out of 10. It's like a passing score, but barely, and it's good. And I enjoyed it. and I thought that it was worth the $11 that I paid for it. Talking about the animation though, it's probably the best part of the movie, even though it had some issues. Like there were some times where like characters just don't have facial expressions. Like it's literally just like a rectangle that has no face on it, and sometimes they kind of mess up. And a lot of the bad guys had like pretty boring designs. Like one of them was like some ogre dude, and this other guy had like this like Donkey Kong thing where he like threw balls instead of barrels. The only one that was interesting was like the main bad guy, the humorized guy, and then one of his agents, which was this like really interesting Robin Hood villain character. I think she was really cool, but there were some moments where like they couldn't decide if she was like muscular or not. So one time she was like relatively muscled, and then another time she was like grotesquely muscled, and then another time she was like very unmuscled completely, and it was like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. Is she fit? Is she not fit? Does it matter? No, not really. But like, it was an inconsistency in the animation that kind of bothered me because they like zoomed in on her shoulders, right? But like, sometimes they were muscled and sometimes they weren't. So what the heck are you zooming into their arms for, right? So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But generally, a lot of it was pretty beautiful. The final fights at the end were pretty great. Like, I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't enjoy it. I was like really hyped. I was like, yeah, man, you know, oh, Isugu, beat the shit out of that guy. And like, I really liked Bakugo's fight a lot. I thought it was really cool. I really loved anytime Todoroki used his ice. Like, they made the animation kind of different from the anime, where instead of like having spikes, it was like these like square kind of techniques. Like it was like he was building kind of infrastructure that you would see in like a drafting table or something like that. And I thought that was really, really cool. It looked really amazing. And I liked it a lot. So like the animation really carried the movie for me, but the movie was still fun. It was like a 7 out of 10. That's not a bad score. That's a pretty good one. I even went matinee, and there was also like barely any people at the movie theater. So I really enjoyed it because it's like, yes, this whole theater is just basically for me. And I really liked it. I thought it was really wonderful. But again, the plot line is really not the best because it really doesn't make too much sense. And because it's a little bit too similar to like American action movies. And I'm not really looking for an American action movie when I go watch an anime, right? I'm looking for like something that is vaguely related to the manga that it comes from. So I don't know. My opinion on this is a little bit mixed. It's generally positive, mostly positive, but there are some things that detract from my enjoyment. And it's only because I bothered to think about it after I watched it that it bothered me. Because if I had just like went in and then went back home and not thought about it, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But it's because I enjoy analyzing that kind of lowered the kind of enjoyment of it for me, right? So there you go. I don't know. The other thing that was kind of interesting is that if you go, make sure to ask about these if they don't give them to you when you show them your ticket. Because apparently these are being handed out to everyone that goes in and watches the movie. So, you know, make sure you get this. I saw a lot of people that were leaving the theater without trying to pick them up. So, you know, there you go. I picked up a few because I wanted to have one for myself. I wanted to have one to give out when we get to 1,000 subscribers. And I thought that it would be nice to have one in reserve for whatever happens. Maybe I damage my book, or maybe I want to sell it somewhere else, you know, in the future, like 10 years from now when someone's like trying to look for it or something like that. I don't know. I thought it was nice to kind of get an extra one just in case. But yeah, these are pretty fun. They don't really have anything too important on them. It's more just like information about the characters and stuff like that. But of course, this isn't made by Viz, so the build quality of it is not the best, but it's still kind of good enough. So yeah, there you go. That's all of my thoughts on this movie. I'm not gonna really edit this. I don't really have anything that I think I messed up on. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought about the movie if you've seen it. And if you haven't, are you going to go watch it? Let me know down in the comments. So yeah, see you guys later.